Alright, let's do this.
Alright, so Volume 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man kicks things up a notch. This volume, Spidey's doing stuff. We get a deeper look at Peter Parker's life as a teen, trying to juggle school, relationships, and, you know, being the only thing keeping Queens from, you know, whatever the hell that he's dealing with that week. Bendis does his thing, blending humor, action, and profound emotional beats that remind you why Spider-Man is such a compelling character. Plus, Bagley's art, still top tier, even if one of the issues has some panels that feel like a little copy-paste at times. This volume has everything I want to see. Shocker is a joke. Peter gets a 2000s techie side hustle at the Bugle, and of course, Kingpin is a massive, terrifying, absolute unit of a man. As for B-roll in this video, I decided to draw one of the panels and one of the last issues of the volume. It's of Peter and MJ talking to each other, but I elected to actually draw this time instead of actually just inking over Bagley's pencils in this one. So and I also wanted to try out this new camera angle, so let me know what you think. Let's dive into all the good stuff. First impressions, we seem to have taken a design departure from the 616 Shocker.
Get back here, Shocker!
This one kind of just looks like some guy in his basement who just made these shot gauntlets. That being said, Peter also made his web shooters in his basement, so maybe that's just a reflection of him in some way. But also, I miss the cushion look.
So you must be Quilt Man, Padded Pete, Mr. Triple Ply? Oh, I've got it. The cushion.
I'm the Shocker.
Spidey ends up sucker punching him and then webs up his gauntlets, causing him to like backfire, and Shocker shocks himself like an idiot. The guards are of course, you know, terrified of him. They offer him some money, but Peter, of course, jokes about it clashing with his costume and dips. We then cut to Midtown High, where Kong is telling Flash and the others that Spider-Man is, or well, was sighted in Brooklyn, and how, you know, they could have made like a lot of money if you just gotten a photo of him. Is it time for Peter to start selling selfies to the Daily Bugle? Go ahead and get that bag, Peter. Best deal you're gonna have until, I don't know, OnlyFans, you know, starts up in like 20 some odd years. So Peter of course tries this, and Jonah undercuts him after he was, you know, arguing with his employees. Ben and Robbie ask about like what stories are gonna go into the paper.
We sold out 4 printings. Sold out every copy. Tomorrow morning, Spider-Man, page 1 with a decent picture this time.
Yep, it just went just like that. Betty Brant, another of Jameson's employees, is overheard yelling about her computer and how she can't figure out web design. And I'm sure she was just yelling about opening a PDF file, you know, earlier. Now, if I was some big shot sponsored YouTuber, this would be the segue for like Wix or WordPress, but I'm not. So you guys are safe from that, you know, for now. Now, my background in web design has me like really emphasized with this situation as someone who's had to write a whole bunch of old school website code, and I completely understand her freaking out. It looks exactly like this. And yeah, I agree, one class isn't gonna teach you web design. Well, maybe nowadays, it might not be the case. But they are in luck because Peter knows web design. No, like legit, he fixes the website and then JJ offers him a job like on the spot. But does have to listen to Aunt May, you know, talking his ear off on the phone. And he threatens to throw Peter out of a window if he ever has to do that again. So Spider-Man's office job life begins like working on websites. Bendis, I know you're like really proud of yourself for like this one. I think it's a good move to update Peter's job because let's be realistic. How many times is this Bugle really gonna pay Peter for pictures of Spider-Man?
Could you pay me in advance?
Really? I mean, no wonder he couldn't afford any. Like, no, for the main line of comics, he's definitely takes pictures of other stuff too, so it's not just selfies, but a web designer Spider-Man is like definitely a better fit for, you know, the modern age of 2000. The selfie thing was more viable before, you know, everyone actually had a high definition camera with them at all times. We then go to some like really rendered scenes of Spider-Man and like a dream sequence about Uncle Ben and his killer. The art itself looks like it has this really weird 3D effect rendering that we've been doing for like some of the covers for some of these books. It's a little jarring, upsetting, kind of to look at. I don't know, it's just off-putting, but I do think that's kind of like the point. And if that's the case, it totally works. Peter then wakes up yelling and crying, and Aunt May comes to comfort him. Oh yeah, that Parker gup is sure sinking in. We then close the issue with Peter going through files at the Bugle and then finding a whole bunch of stuff out on the Kingpin and this whole like network of crime. Later, Peter strikes up a conversation with Robbie, wondering like why no one's like stopped him or like gone after him. Robbie ends up saying that the Bugle did go after him, and then, you know, the Kingpin went and bought stocks in the Bugle, or he had the ability to kind of shut them down. Robbie then says it's impossible to bring him down. Peter, of course, takes this as a personal challenge.
Challenge accepted.
We then move into issue 9. 3 of Kingpin's enforcers, Ox, Montana, and Fancy Dan. So, when are these guys getting out of the crisis protocol? Ox makes a joke about the new 99-cent menu at McDonald's, and oh my god, if there was ever a doubt about what year this takes place in.
Come shake up your winter with the Mickey D's Dollar Menu.
Crying about fast food prices in 2025 aside, the trio of Western movie rejects, they discussed the possibility of knocking down McDonald's. They just didn't like that it was there. Makes no sense, but okay, sure. But one of them reminds everyone that the Kingpin would be big baby mad about it. So like, let's not. Ox is all like, I can totally take him. And he immediately gets humbled by the other two. Not a chance he could, they tell him. Spidey, of course, is listening in on them and surprise attacks them. Why? From what I could tell, Pete, at this point is kind of just throws his lanky weight around. I think he's like on a bit of an ego trip, because like at this point, he's only fought thugs, wrestlers, and then, you know, that hulking Green Goblin the one time. They actually put up a bit of a fight here, and it looks like Peter is kind of surprised by this, but then he remembers that he's freaking Spider-Man and subdues him. Then a 4th guy ends up showing up saying that, you know, he doesn't want the smoke and he could take him to Kingpin if that's what Spidey wants. The guy ends up telling Spider-Man that a certain gala that's gonna be happening on Friday night and that it's super important to Wilson Fisk. Spidey is slightly confused as why this guy is just freely giving him this information. After all, he just beat up 3 guys. But our mystery man says that just because he's working for Fisk doesn't mean that he has his best interest in mind. Then the FBI busts in and puts them all under arrest, and Spidey flees. He is a pro at running and should do track or something.
She's a runner, she's a track star.
Of course the Bugle is gonna report on this absolute scandal. Friendly neighborhood obstruction of justice. The Bugle delivers their final verdict. A menace.
Masked menace terrorizes town.
What I like about this situation is it shows that Peter is inexperienced as a hero, and he might be smart, but he does not have that superhero wisdom yet. And he still, by all accounts, is a 15-year-old. At school, Kong is talking about Spider-Man, again, much to the anger of Liz Allen. Flash ends up scolding Kong about this, but I have to say, I'm not sure if I really dig this. So, Flash in the mainline series is a huge Spider-Man fan, and even started his own Spider-Man fan club. So, you have that tasty irony there, since he doesn't like Peter, but loves Spider-Man. It just makes it a bit deeper about who is Spider-Man and who is Peter Parker and what the difference is there. Well, here in the Ultimate Universe, this dynamic is absent. It's a trait that they gave Kong instead of Flash, and I think that kind of robs a bit of Flash's character here. Now he's just a hater. But hey, that's the whole entire point of the Ultimate Universe, is to try and like branch out and do brand new ideas that you couldn't do in the main timeline. Anyway, we move on to MJ asking Peter out to the movies on Saturday. Jameson is given the next story to publish on the website. Peter, again, a 15-year-old working in an office, asks Jameson why they didn't have like a more well-rounded stance on the whole Spider-Man stories. Maybe he's starting to take it a bit personal here. Well, Jameson tells him that basically people don't want the truth. They aren't really looking for a well-rounded look at anything. What they are looking for is a black and white story where there's like someone to either root for or, you know, hate. It's a bit cynical, jaded adult wisdom. I mean, he does kind of have a point there. It's the night of the gala, and then Fisk is a big boy. Holy crap, look at the size of those hands. Peter is sneaking in and complaining about how Fisk is being celebrated as a good guy, and he is being treated like the bad guy. So not fair. He then gets that tingle in the back of his neck as Kingpin is behind him. Issue 10 opens out with this image of Fisk about to grab Spidey, and then we get Peter having his inner monologue about like that sixth sense that he has. I just kind of realized he actually hasn't figured out that he has a spider sense yet. It did kick in when he got almost hit by that car in one of the earlier issues. Fisk then grabs him, and then they start duking it out. Fisk is demanding on who sent Spider-Man after him, and Spider-Man is just kind of calling him fat over and over. Fisk then calls for Electro, and we see one of Spider-Man's more powerhouse foes back in the ring. Electro then ends up blasting Peter, knocking him out. And then they end up doing the unthinkable. They remove his mask. But, like, he's just some kid they don't even know, so they just kind of throw him out of a window. Peter survives, of course, because if not, this would have been a very early end of the run. And of course, on his way home, he starts beating himself up about how much he like screwed up and how underprepared he was. What's good about this scene is that even though Peter might have powers and is super smart, he isn't a Mary Sue. He does lose and he screws up, and then he does rise above it. And that's what makes him interesting. And now the suspense starts to build. How is Spider-Man going to take out Electro? How will he topple the Kingpin? The drama. Speaking of the drama, so Peter finally gets home and Aunt May seems to be depressed. She asks Peter, "Do you even like me?" Peter, he's shocked by this and comforts her. And she says, "You're never here." It's a heartbreaking scene. Remember, Uncle Ben's only, recently just passed away. We don't really have like a whole time frame of how long it's actually been, but Aunt May has like got to be feeling that, vacancy. Her husband, for who knows how long, is just not there. And her nephew, who until recently hasn't really been around either, like with work and just disappearing from a whole bunch of blanks of time. Now, regardless, we are getting closer and closer to that classic Spider-Man type story where Peter struggles to balance the demands of being Peter Parker with the demands of, being Spider-Man. So another thing Peter has to juggle the next morning is that MJ calls him about their date. Of course, Peter ends up canceling to focus on healing because he got, electrocuted. And of course he can't explain that. So to MJ, he just kind of flaked out. Meanwhile, over with Fisk and the boys, they're having a discussion about these costume freaks who keep popping up all over the place. Our mystery guy from earlier ends up back talking to Fisk, and Fisk, a man of his, known for his level-headed responses, puts a Spider-Man mask on him and then crushes the dude like a soda can. Fisk has made sure that no one is going to step up to him again like that. And the next morning on the news, they find the body with the Spider-Man mask. The reporters end up claiming that Spider-Man is the top suspect. Back to school on Monday in class, they're going over the Nixon tape. You wouldn't expect it, but it'll be kind of relevant later. Symbolism, baby. Peter and MJ are stealthily passing notes back and forth about how sorry he is about their date night. God, this kind of just brings back, some my own memories of doing this with a girl that, I liked when I was at that age. Simpler times. The issue closes on Peter making the comparison of Fisk to Nixon. Fisk thinks that he's untouchable and Spider-Man's just, is gonna touch him. Issue 11 opens up with Peter at work. He's doing, spicy bit of wage theft and researching the Kingpin on company time. We then get the Parker inner dialogue about how he screwed up because, he turned off his brain when he puts on the mask. And I'm just glad that he kind of realized that. He ends up making a fake email address and sends it to Fisk's, security team, fishing for info about their security cameras by coming up with a fake company, which is pretty smart for 2001. But I think IT might do a bit more to keep track of that nowadays, or I at least would hope so. We then cut to Peter at school, and he's been summoned by the school doctor therapist to discuss the whole Spider-Man and Green Goblin situation that happened a couple issues ago. Peter ends up correcting her, saying that it's Harry's dad. How could she not know about this? It was like a huge story on the news. She ends up asking him questions like, is he having trouble sleeping? How is he coping with the loss? And Peter's kind of getting annoyed with the whole entire thing, and he just does not want to talk about this. As soon as he finds out that this isn't like a requirement from the school, he gives her the Parker goodbye. When I read this, I was like, what? Talking about your feelings? Taking care of your mental health in the early 2000s? That's 2020 behavior. It came up a lot. When Pete ends up dipping, he ends up running into Liz Allen, and she's headed in to talk to the doctor. Cut to the rest of the class. Kong mentions that he's seen all of the Keanu Reeves movies, and he just does not see the appeal of them. This is 2001, mind you. No, I'm mad. How dare you? First off, Bill and Ted is a masterpiece. Excellent! And I understand that John Wick hasn't been created yet, but still, the first Matrix is great. I can't have Bendis talking smack about my Johnny Silverhand. Sorry, I digress. Peter's trying to talk to MJ, and she's still kind of mad at him for flaking out. So she ends up blowing him off. Peter goes home defeated by maybe one of his toughest foes yet, teenage relationships, reflecting on the whole way home of whether he should tell MJ that he's Spider-Man. He doesn't want her to think of him as some sort of flaky douchebag. Plus, chicks, dig heroes, right? We watch as he debates with himself, but to his surprise, Peter doesn't get the email back from the security, and they just straight up give him the info that he was asking for. Peter no longer has to debate with himself about MJ. The wheel of Parker guilt turns. We learn about this high-end 2001 security intel, which looks as it burns DVDs. Well, this system can hold 5,000 DVDs. So back in the day, these DVDs could hold about 4.7 gigs, which is great for the time, right? That's a whole room for floppy disks. It's still pretty sizable now, but I digress. Peter suits up and then takes off, leaving Aunt May in the dust again. He has to. He's Spider-Man. He's probably like the only guy who can take down the Kingpin. If he doesn't, who will? Who's out there suffering right now that wouldn't be if this one guy was just dealt with? The weight of the capital R responsibility grinds him to dust every single moment of every single day. In the meantime, Kingpin is talking about his plans. Spider-Man is on his radar, and he seems to be kind of concerned. His goons say that they have nothing to worry about. As they talk, Spider-Man's taking down this security using the information that he just finessed. Then the lights go out. We end the issue with Peter managing to swipe a few of those DVDs, and then, well, if it isn't the dumbass trio. And they're here with Electro. They all have come to beat Spidey's ass. Issue 12 opens up with Spidey fighting Kingpin's enforcers and Electro. Does Electro count as an enforcer? Spidey starts dodging all of their attacks and then start outsmarting them, and I love all of these panels, just showing Spider-Man dodging and using their attacks against each other. Just chef's kiss. The enforcers are quickly dealt with, leaving Spider-Man and Electro to just slug it out. Spidey asks Electro, how'd you even get your powers? You mutant? And which I'm like, oh, mutants, you say? So we've got a Hulk tease, a Daredevil tease, and now mutant. So that's exciting. Electro isn't having it, threatens to fry Spider-Man's entire family, whoever that might be. Spidey then cracks open the conveniently placed water pipe over there and shorts out Electro, ending the fight. If this was Pikachu, this would have gone totally different. As Spidey goes to escape, he's then stopped by the Kingpin himself, shirt untucked, ready to throw down real final boss like. We then get the infamous Spider-Man cue card scene where Spider-Man uses his ultimate ability, vicious quippery. Disclaimer, these are not my words, they're his. You're so fat, when you cut yourself shaving, marshmallow fluff comes out. No? Okay. How about this one? You're so fat that your high school yearbook photo was taken from a helicopter. Ooh, tough room. Okay, how about this? You're so fat when you're on the scale it says 1 at a time. Wait, how about this one? Your belly button makes an echo. If you were a truck, you would have a wide load sign. When you back up, we can hear a beeping sound. It's a full-blown classic Spider-Man mocking session. And I don't know if you ever got into a fight and just started, you know, making fun of your opponent before, but it's usually pretty effective taunt. Spidey takes advantage of Fisk just rampaging him, and he just starts webbing him up, and then using this chance to like get away. Peter later goes through the DVDs and secretly setting them on reporter Ben Urich's desk to give him the scoop. And at the end of it all, Peter finally ends up making plans with MJ the next day. Somewhere, the Kingpin is reading the Daily Bugle headline. With Pete and MJ hanging out in his room, Peter makes the witty decision to tell MJ that he is Spider-Man, which of course she doesn't believe him, and he ends up proving it by climbing on his bedroom walls. MJ, of course, freaks out and then generally thinks it's really cool. Nice. Peter explains that he can't go public with the whole Spider-Man thing because it still puts people in danger. By people, he does mean like his poor Aunt May, who is like around here somewhere, right? MJ then lets it slip that he thought he was going to kiss her, and they kind of get a confession between the two, and then she says her little catchphrase.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot.
And then they go for a kiss. But she thinks they were having hanky-panky. Who says that? I know it's 2001, but I don't think anyone said that then. MJ gets a call to just go home, and Peter, on the other hand, is at the mercy of Aunt May and her really awkward questions, and like, oof, I'm getting like secondhand embarrassed for this kid. Aunt May ends the conversation, and also issue 13, and all of volume 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man, by mentioning that his parents met in high school. This statement adds a lot of weight to MJ and Peter's developing relationship, but I do like it when Peter gets like a small little win like this. Anyway, it's a cute conversation that caps the volume, and a great palate cleanser before we get into, you know, back into like the heavy stuff.
Let's cut out the happy shit. Let's get angry. Let's get tough. Let's play some heavy shit.
I mean, look how mad this guy is. Yikes. One thing I do want to bring up is that the art in this drawing is great, but several of these panels, especially of MJ, are repeated. Like 1 page, 3 panels are the same, which like, I totally get it. I mean, like after issue 12 and all the craziness that was drawn, I think Bagley is better off not trying to do that for an entire issue. I'm just saying. I'm only like bringing it up because it was pretty noticeable. But volume 2 is solid, and it's got everything you want from an early Spider-Man story. The humor is on point, and the action's awesome, and the personal drama hits you right in the feels. Devastating. Kingpin is like a straight up menace. Like, he's generally menacing, and the supporting cast adds a lot of depth. Peter's figuring it all out step by step, and it's so fun to watch him like stumble and get back up. Spider-Man stories are at its best when Peter has to juggle a whole lot of problems all at once. It's something we all have to deal with because, like, of course, it can never just be 1 or 2 things going on in your life at a time. It just keeps going. The ride never ends. And we're starting to get into that kind of situation for Peter. One of the best things about Ultimate Spider-Man is watching Peter's growth as a character. We're just on issue 13 now, and this guy has already learned a whole lot as a hero and a young man coming into his own. I mean, all this is happening, and the problems that come from adulthood are still queued up for the future. When characters continue to grow from things they go through, people continue to care about them. When it comes to the big bad in this arc, I'm a huge fan of the Kingpin. Though I do like him tangling with Daredevil a bit more, but he works perfectly well as a Spider-Man villain too. It's a different dynamic. I enjoy him being Spidey's second big bad of this comic run, and now we've seen him tangle with him for the first time. I tend to like it when we start off with street level and grounded stories before we see something more spectacular. No pun intended. Although in this volume we do see him face Electro. So I guess that kind of defeats my point there a little bit, but you know what? I'm just saying. Also, it's always good to see Spider-Man pick on Shocker. Honestly, it's classic Spidey with a modern twist, and I'm here for it. And when I mean modern, I do mean for 2001. Anyway, I can't wait to see what goes on next in Volume 3. I've been Dane, and hopefully you enjoyed yourself and that you like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time for Volume 3.
I've got it. The cushion.